What is up, everyone? Welcome to DIY or Die. Today we are going to be talking about VG and PG. So VG, PG are two very important aspects of DIY e-liquid mixing. The quality of your VG and PG will translate directly into the quality of your vape, the quality of your recipes, the quality of your flavor. Now, there's a lot of VG out there. Essentially, the VG that you get from any sort of DIY e-liquid vendor or any sort of nicotine supplier, any place that sells products meant for vaping, usually has some pretty good VG. There are some exceptions to the rule, but most of it will be pretty good and usable. Some people use VG that they find at Rite Aid, or they use VG that they get at a pharmacy somewhere. And I don't really recommend any of that. I really just say stick to the VG that you get when you purchase your flavorings. If you need to go somewhere else, if you want more high quality VG, PG, you can search elsewhere like Liquid Barn, like Vapors Tech and stuff like that. But for the most part, that's where you're going to get the best bang for your buck, because I've seen many people buy VG from like a Rite Aid or something, and they end up finding that their recipes are muted. And mainly this is because of one thing. The water content in the VG matters. You want as little water content in your VG as possible. That water content will actually affect the flavor of your juice. It'll make it a little bit more muted. It'll just mess things up a little bit. So you want it as close to 100% as possible. Now, the VG that you want is USP food grade VG. That's going to be perfectly fine for your uses. And the purity on the Liquid Barn, which I find as one of the best VGs that you can get, is 99.7%. That level of purity is absolutely acceptable. Anything less than that, you might be able to notice it. I've seen some VGs as low as like 95%. You definitely don't want anything like that. As close as you can get to 100% as best as possible. I like to use that baseline of 99.7% when looking at VG. Essentially, if you want to store your VG long term, then you want to put it in glass and you want to remove as much oxygen as you can out of that bottle. There's ways you can do it. There's certain devices that you can use that will seal the bottle when you put it on and remove the oxygen as it seals. It's a little bit more pricey and you don't really need to do that, but that's if you're going to be storing long term. Now, there are VG, PG options that come with nicotine. They come together, like it's just almost like unflavored e-liquid. Like this here, the basic line from Liquid Barn. And this is a great option if you just need speed. Like if you really don't care too much about customizing your VG, PG levels. If you really only vape at like 70-30 or 60-40, and you want just a really fast way to mix something that's really easy, then something like this is great for you. But you're absolutely going to get more bang for your buck. You're going to get more value. You're going to have more customizable options when you purchase your VG and PG separately. I always recommend purchasing more VG than you do PG if you vape at a higher VG ratio. Obviously, if you vape more PG, like a 70 PG, 30 VG, then you're going to want to buy more propylene. But I run through VG like crazy, so buy as much VG as you possibly can when you first start out. That way you always have some on hand. Put it somewhere in a dark, cool environment where there's no sun getting to it, where it's out of the way from any sort of heat, because that will introduce condensation, and that condensation will end up muting the flavors of your recipes. So for example, I have this big batch here that's pretty much almost gone of Essential Depot, and I really only have it here just for looks. It's just, I just kind of want it in the background. But I don't know if you can notice, but the color of the VG has somewhat of a darker tint to it. And this is because as it sort of oxidizes, it sort of just introduces just condensation and water into the mix. And if I were to use this in a recipe, it'll mute my flavors, and it'll mute them to a degree that is almost unvapable. I've had bad batches of VG, especially from Essential Depot, because it seems like their QA is not very good. It's a great value, and if you're looking to get like a big gallon for cheap, Essential Depot is a great way to go. Same with Bulk Apothecary, but just beware that the QA might be a little off. Because I've had bad batches where I mix them and I'm mixing for like a week and I don't know what's going on. I can't taste any of my recipes. They all seem to have this really weird sort of like sweat flavor to them, and that's because the VG is just not clean. It's not pure. There's something wrong with the VG. So if your VG looks like this, if it's been sitting a while, if it's starting to change in color, if you notice any sort of odors on it, throw it away, get yourself a new bottle of VG. It's cheap. VG is probably the cheapest ingredient in vaping, so You can buy a shitload of it, and trust me, your recipes and your vapes will be so much better if you're using quality VG, nice pure VG, nice pure PG. You're keeping them, you're storing them in a cool, dark environment, and you're very conscious of that. One more thing also, if your VG comes in like capsules like this is from Delosi and this is from Wizard Labs, if they come like this and they don't have a spout or anything and you're mixing by weight, transfer this into a bottle like this, because it's going to make your mixing a lot faster. It just makes it just so much better. It's not leaking as much oxygen because you can close it immediately. And yeah, you just want to switch these bottles out. I haven't really opened these yet, so I haven't done that. I probably won't need to. But say I run out of this and I have this in the back, I'm gonna definitely transfer this into this bottle, because this is just not a great way, unless you're using syringes, this is really not a great way to use your VG-PG. And lastly, talking about VG-PG ratios, I know a lot of you want to know my opinion on this. Higher VG, such as 80-20, 90-10, 100% VG, it does affect flavor somewhat. It just introduce a little bit of a softer vape. Your vibrancy, your saturation of your vape won't be nearly as high as with a higher VG ratio. Personally, the way that I like to vape is at 60-40 or 50-50. Sometimes I'll vape at 70-30 if I want to start to introduce a little bit of a softer flavor, like a marshmallow or something, then I'll mix it at 70-30. Or if a flavor is a little bit too sharp, I'll mix it at 70-30 and it'll help soften it out a little bit. But for the most part, 60-40, 50-50, and that gives me the best balance between just really nice, voluminous, plumy clouds and saturation and vibrance in the flavor. So I hope that answers all of your VG-PG questions. Check out the link below if you want to get 15% off any sort of orders you make at Liquid Barn if you need to pick up some VG-PG. And yeah, make sure you guys are getting quality VG-PG. It really does make a difference. Try to look at the purity. Anything lower than 99.7% I find is just not worth it. Just look for something better. The price might be $1 more. You know, it's really, the price difference isn't really too much. All right, so head down to my website, DIY-vaping.com. That way you can get any other DIY e-liquid recipes, tips, tricks, tutorials, and more. And yeah, hit up my Instagram at DIY-vaping. I'll catch you guys later. Keep mixing. Much love. Peace, peace.